I'm just kidding. I know you're early. I know you're early, but I couldn't resist. I couldn't resist. So we'll come back to board reports in just a minute. We'll turn some time to our. How do we want to do this?
Let me just
Mike, you want
really quick. I got a couple of copies on the tracking sheet. If you didn't get one or you should have had a copy, but hand those out if you have questions.
We'll excuse Councilmember Crittenden. He had a family issue he had to take care of.
All right. By the way, just to answer Councilman Good's question, Mark has extremely large experience in trying to convince the state that they want money, so just go to him.
Mark,
it might stop right there.
I'm doing it for 6 years.
Anyway, as you know, the legislative session went actually pretty well. It's kind of old history now. I'm just talking to Senator Van Tassel. We haven't seen any interim meeting schedules. There was a long list of suggested items to cover with the Speaker and the President of the Senate both not running for election. They might have other things on their mind, but that should be out soon. But I'll leave this to you, and we'll turn the time over and start with Senator Van Tassel. Just give them all a few minutes. I think this has two possibilities. You can talk about any of the bills you have questions, but with a new session coming up, if you have some ideas about or questions about what might happen or could happen later, I think it's time to talk about that as well.
Thank you.
We brought handouts.
Yeah, you know, the Senate.
You got what? You didn't have a presentation?
I had food, but they told me not to bring it in.
Thanks, Mike.
Well, it's good to be here with you. It was as far as I was concerned, it was one of the toughest sessions I've been through. Really? That's partially because I got a new job partway through it. Had to learn a new one on the run. But anyway, I think we had, what I passed out is, and Senator Hinkins and I both had access to this, but I've been passing it out as I've been making some comments. I was running the articles in the paper, the weekly update, and of course, when the session ends, it's over and getting things done and out to the paper is hard. And so this is the final letter that we put together. This includes what we consider is the 50 big things that the Senate dealt with in the session. And some of the things that you're looking for may or may not be there, but I think you'll find it informative and some issues that we dealt with. I think that I would start by saying Mark and I spent quite a bit of time working on some funding for a railroad bridge project as we redo a trail coming up Provo Canyon. And all of a sudden, the numbers that we were given were nowhere near what we got to come back with. And so we weren't able to succeed in that. But I've talked with Mark, and I think that in today's environment at the legislature, I think that what we'll try to do and get prepared and to get through the Senate this coming year is maybe not as large an appropriation as we were working for on a one-time basis, but try to get a 5 or 10 year ongoing funding for the Hebrew Railroad to accomplish and to maintain that. I believe that with us going, spending a lot of money to upgrade our Winter Olympic venues, which Soldier Hollow will be a big benefactor of that. We'll get some new pipelines and some things over there. That part of that we ought to try to get probably a $500,000 ongoing for 10 years to handle some of the issues that just need to be done at the train as part of the state agency. So Mark sent me a paper and we're working on that, and I think it's a viable project. We'll try to get that together this summer. I think one of the things that I worked with Councilman Farrell with is that we were able to pass a urban farming bill that includes Wasatch County.
It includes the entire state.
It includes the entire state, but it started out on a Wasatch County focus, and we went through a lot of variations and gyrations to get to that, and all of a sudden it became evident that this is something that's going to be, anybody that's close to a population center will probably have some use for it. And so it is statewide. It will require the county government to enact an ordinance to be able to take advantage of that. There are some things that pasture doesn't count. They'll have to harvest some type of crop off of there, and that will vary. I don't think any of you, I don't know of anybody in Wasatch County that's a truck farmer, but I think a lot of you cut hay, and I talked to Chief Giles, and he says, you wouldn't believe how many small acreage I cut every summer for hay. And so there's some of those that will probably be able to qualify for that. It has to be irrigated. And I think the whole purpose of that is that I've always envisioned Wasatch County, and particularly Heber Valley, as a kind of a rural, some open space area. And I think this isn't going to be the solution to all of that, but I hope that we're able to keep some open space that people want to hold on to and to keep. And I think it's just another tool that you'll be able to use. So I hope that's a benefit to you. Here's, I brought some of these little budget cards in the Senate, and I don't have a lot of those left. I mean, they've been pretty popular. But this is a look at the state budget in the state of Utah. It gives you what's state money and what is federal money and where it's spent and how the surplus was spent. I think it gives you an idea of what we did to that. Education was a big benefactor and received a lot of the funds that was there. On the back of that card, if you look at that, it gives you some very interesting figures that pertain to the state of Utah. It talks about our growth. It talks about some of the things that we've increased. I guess the thing that I'd like to say is that we do have a balanced budget. We've also improved on the funding of our retirement council, retirement benefits. We're about 85, 86% funded on that, which is a good place to be. Not many states are that way, and we continue to make progress on that as we change that. And of course, that's not without, but we continue to see people wanting to go back to the old system, and we just can't afford it. I mean, we've got to be able to give a great retirement benefit to it, but we just don't have the ability to do a defined benefit anymore, as many of the companies in the United States and here in Utah has changed. So I don't know, I don't want to take Tim or David's time, but we'll be ready to answer any questions. I think that we had some key issues that we were able to, I guess, Mike, we could say we got them shut down and held them off. Some of those will be back in, will probably be back in interim study, and I encourage you to watch those and make sure that we're aware of those so that they don't come up and we get blindsided on those, because there will be some interesting issues, particularly on water and some of those issues that didn't get passed that got held up. So I think for all of us in the state of Utah, water's key, and as we deal with some of those, they weren't quite ready yet. But overall, I think we continue to get accolades for how well the state is run. We try to be business friendly. I can tell you right now that we did a lot of heavy lifting in there. We've done some governance changes, and quite frankly, there's some things we didn't get to that whether we go back into special session to resolve some of those. We've got some issues on the federal tax cut that was given and how that applies to the state. We knew that we weren't quite getting there, but we got done what we could do. And I think now that we're starting to kind of get away from the fog of the last few days we're seeing there, and I would anticipate that we might deal with a couple of those later on. So our large families that we rely on for our employment or workforce are treated maybe more fairly. But those are some issues that are yet to be handled and done. So I'm going to pass the time, and we'll be glad to open with, I guess, you, Senator, and then we'll answer any questions you might have.
Well, those that don't know me, I'm David Hinkins, Senator Hinkins. I live down in Farron, Utah. I represent 6 counties. Most of the area here in Wasatch County is Charleston, Timber Lakes, and Daniel. And so I represent Carbon, Emery, Grand Sand, part of Utah County, which is Mapleton and Springville. And so I don't know why I was going to say callings, but what I do is I serve as appropriations chair for natural resources. And some of the things that we're going to be doing, we haven't set the agenda yet for what we're going to be covering. We're just working on that today, actually. And so it'll be throughout the interim committee meetings, we'll have 4 appropriation meetings that talks about our budgets and stuff like that. So hopefully we can talk about some of the things that would impact. That's mostly on transportation, on the IGG, so they'll have 4 meetings as well. I deal with water issues and public lands issues. One of the bills that I was involved with this year was to be able to get natural gas. Dominion Energy will be able to take some of the money that's out of the bills and be able to help rural development. So I'm not sure how much of your area is on propane, but this will actually allow them to be able to run lines subsidized by the other ratepayers in the state of Utah, which is controversial if you live in Salt Lake. But if you live out where in Green River, Utah, where they're within maybe 20 miles of gas wells, but yet they can't get the infrastructure to their businesses. And they've lost a lot of things that could have been theirs, like a distribution center, like say Walmart distribution center, where they have big warehouses, and because they can't afford to heat them with propane, or then there's no natural gas in that area, this will actually allow them maybe to do some economic development, to do certain things like that for maybe some of the smaller companies that would have warehousing, and because they have railroad that goes through Green River as well as I-70, and then the Highway 6 that ties into I-15, and it's actually busier than Highway 6. It's actually got more traffic than the, you guys know how that is. And I'm sure you guys want to talk about the bypass that we're working on, Department of Transportation. So anything we can do to help you with that, we'd be more than happy to do it. We're working with I'm working with Moab right now to try to, they're working at a bypass as well, because they have a lot of traffic on 191 that goes through there with just commerce, basically, then it all goes through the downtown area. We're working on getting a 4-lane from the Colorado River Bridge to the town of Moab, so that will kind of help a little bit of the impact. And they get a lot of tourists. I think 500,000 a year just to the Moab area now. It's quite extensive, it's quite big. And so we're here to answer any questions, and go ahead.
I'd just make a comment that if there's 2 choke points in the state of Utah that's not on the Wasatch Front, Senator Hinkins and I have those. That's Main Street in Heber City and Moab in his district. And I think our intent is to try to get that elevated and see if we can't move that up the stick list somehow. And maybe through transportation, some of those things we can work on that, because as we continue to see the growth in not only Wasatch County, but coming up from Utah County and Wasatch County, if we wait 10 more years, we will be in complete failure on Main Street, is my opinion. And I know that, and I checked with UDOT prior to coming, because the environmental is supposedly being done on the bypass, but you know, that's the worst part. We'll spend $1 million on an environmental and still be 2 years away from having it done. But that's just the nature of the beast. If the Trump administration will do what they're saying they're doing, that once environmental study is good enough for an area, that can make a big difference on how we get some things done in the state of Utah particularly. So those are some things that we hear you. I drive through here all the time. I know how busy Main Street can be. And, you know, I don't want to get us to that. And Moab and Heber is both facing the same thing. If we end up having to double deck those 2 Main Streets, that's not a good solution. But, you know, it's just one of those issues that we need to deal with. And I think the group of us, we need to visit with the Transportation Commission and just keep working on that and see if we can't get some things moved up. Because right now we're not really on the step. We're just in the planning stages. And so if it takes 7 or 8 years to go through that, we'll be 10 years before something's built. And that will be a big loss to Heber and to Moab. And unfortunately, neither project is cheap. But we'll spend $500 million on I-15 and think nothing of it. So we ought to be able to spend some on a couple of these projects that are critical to our local communities.
Even we got a place to go, more of them have any place to provide.
Yeah.
Pretty tough. We thought it-
Well, we have a place right now.
We thought
If we go much more, how long will we still have that?
That's the issue.
That's our issue.
I'm not sure what I'm supposed to talk about. David mentioned what callings he had. I serve on Rev and Tax and Judiciary. Not the Judiciary is interesting, probably to the people here, but other than maybe Scott. But in Rev and Tax, we dealt with a lot. I will, just Senator Van Tassel's point about working families, I actually sponsored a bill, HB 385, that would have taken care of that and put them back at parity as to where they are currently.
It says dead.
It died a shameful death.
Along with a lot of others.
I'd be
No, you're not the only
to welcome your support on that, the amount of time you had left, Senator, but we'll see if we can incorporate that into something for next session. Is there anything on this list that you guys want to talk about specifically? Because, I mean, we've talked about the bypass. They are doing a study. Mike came down for a meeting that we had last year in this session and got a commitment from UDOT. I think it was $500,000 to do some of the study here, but
I know my concern, and I'm like Senator Van Tassel, I'm a short timer, but we've been talking about this bypass a long time. And until we can get the property bought or some help, I don't know that we're gonna raise enough money to buy the property we need. Is that fair? It's gonna take us a long time. We need help financially, and I think you know that, but I know you've heard us before, so there's no sense in dwelling on it, but we need some help. If I had if we could wave one magic wand, that's one of the first things anybody around here I think would do.
Do we have an idea of what that cost is?
The property? Yeah. I mean, we can do some, we bought some, but we don't have much of it tied up. So I shouldn't say much, but not
Is
near.
that something that we need to get to you?
well, then UDOT could do that.
Or are you talking about the property, just to purchase it?
Corridor. I thought
Corridor.
haven't we got most of the corridor?
We got a lot of that. We got 85%.
Boy, do you think it's that high?
Yeah, because we have Southfield Road through the sewer farms and stuff, but there's a
Well,
big
we
chunk.
still have to get the property. That road's not near big enough.
No, we got.
Our property, but that's all. The rest of it we don't.
So that's something that you need is
I would say that here, sooner than later, we need to have some kind of a number that we can work with through the interim. I mean, there's anticipated that, that there's a lot of things that was done in transportation, and that's still going to take a little while to shake out. But if we don't get on the front of that train, we'll lose the power in the rear car and just lose out. So
Right now, we did instigate a corridor preservation fee on the motor vehicle registration, but the county, and I think some of the city, we've overextended what that is. In other words, we've purchased more property than we've been reimbursed for by quite a ways.
So if you was reimbursed for the property that you got, you'd have enough probably to buy the rest of it.
No.
Well, there's one big chunk, it depends how we get it.
We're generating about $300,000 a year in total fees. And we're behind by $1.5 million to $2 million just on the county incorporated side. Heber City's behind as well. So even to just catch up with what we bought, we're a long ways from getting there, and then to get additional funds to purchase the rest. So the county has already extended past that. We were glad to do that. The properties became available, willing buyer, willing seller, and we're doing what we can, but kind of running out of time and money.
Mike, would you get me kind of a white paper on kind of with a map that pertains to what we've got? I mean, quite frankly, in my opinion, you're down to the bypass that you got identified. I don't see any
Southern or western bypass, I agree.
it's the only corridor we've got, and so, but anyway, if you can get that to us, I'd be glad to work with that through the interim. And also, as we kind of sort through and see where we got, there might be the ability to, the voters could approve some things. And I would say that if I lived in Heber and had to go through Main Street every day, there's probably enough aggravation sitting there that people are willing to maybe pay a little to help get a corridor finished and bypass. I don't know.
We'll put it on our list.
I think it is. Oil just hit the highest since 2014 today, so it's
Yeah.
probably going to happen. More trucks, you're probably going to see more trucks.
Well, that's the thing, I don't think the western bypass solves a lot of our tanker problem, but it solves a lot of our daily trips between Utah County and
Takes a lot of congestion.
Oh, I got you.
Yeah, but it doesn't really solve our tanker problem, unfortunately, I'm afraid. But, not that that's,
It's a good time to be working on
yeah,
it, so
we'll need some help.
Mike, I'll get with you and we'll, thank you for what.
Is it fair to say, guys, I don't want to be the only one speaking, I don't think we're gonna ever get this done without the state's help.
Oh, no.
There is just no way we're ever gonna get
We've
this
gone
done.
almost as far as we can go. Like Mike said, we're.
I think we've gone farther than we can go. So, quite honest.
Yeah, get a budget so we can at least appropriate it. To try to, we could, run a separate appropriation.
If I can just make one comment that I think is relevant to this. Someone who I have a lot of respect for at UDOT said to me the other day that we should quit calling this a bypass, because it really isn't a bypass for a reason you just said, right? That the trucks are going to stay on Main Street in all likelihood, and UDOT knows that and they understand that. We have to have the road for traffic, and it's probably not going to be a bypass like it was envisioned 30 years ago, but we have to have it. But it's not going to be a bypass, and maybe we should stop calling it a bypass.
And we ought to call it the Western Corridor then.
Maybe, I don't know.
To try to keep up with Davis County.
Maybe, but you know.
Longest view corridor or something.
Auburn, 89 or 91, whichever it is, something like that. But the reality of it is the trucks aren't going to get over there because of where it's going. But if we can take off 70% off of Main Street of that is going there, that'll be a huge benefit to the community.
Then you drop the speed limit like Duchesne 5 miles an hour and you just have tankers idling through town.
So step one is for Mike to get you to the white
Yeah, I'll
paper.
get with Mike and
Okay.
we'll pull some numbers.
So then just whatever else.
And you'll get that done? You'll get us some money?
Kevin's knows what we're talking.
Yeah, I was gonna say, he's gonna help us, but he's in the same boat I am. We've got a short time left.
Senator, do you know where we're at with the pipeline down 9 Mile Canyon?
Part of that pipeline down 9 Mile Canyon, the natural gas access to Green River is critical because there is a refinery that wants to build.
Two of them. They're actually doing the one kind of there now on the east side of town, but they're going to be putting in some 2 larger ones on the west side of Green River.
But they can't build a refinery until they have a natural gas supply. So once we get,
I thought Green River was close to a natural gas supply.
well, they're 20 miles, but
I
that's,
know, but they can study this and do all kinds of,
well, they're like Wasatch, they don't have any money.
I guess you're right there.
But, part of the governor's 25,000 jobs, this kind of fits into that. And it's a way of trying to get some things in there that will benefit. So, depending on how that goes, I think the pieces are starting to come together. I think there's a route established and some issues are there, but we're still a year or 2 away from never getting.
They say that once that gas pipeline is in place, it'll take 200 trucks a day off this road.
I don't believe that, but I hope so. But the issue would be that we're also working on,
They're also working on a railroad that goes out through Colorado, which kind of hurts our refineries, but it'll help the oil field out there, but it will help, it kind of hurt Utah, but that's another thing they're working on is a railroad that would take it through Craig, Colorado.
I've talked with a couple of major producers out there, and with the horizontal drilling that's going on right now, they believe if they could have unlimited export access out of the basin, that it could be 1 million barrels a day field. And the only way we're going to get that is a railroad and probably some more pipelines. And so,
Well, that too, and then they can obtain 50% more per barrel.
Yeah,
That go to a
the other issue is the salt lake refineries are pretty much at capacity. I mean, if that being the only market for a lot of that oil right now, it's going to get to be a price war, and it'll be cheaper, and that'll slow things. And so there's a lot of there's 3 or 4 things that are going on right now that could make a big difference on Highway 4.